But when it comes to sort of this whole nervous system regulation piece, which I started out talking about, if you can keep the nervous system more calm, if you can manage the stress that's involved with life in general, but also oxalate in particular, because oxalate's causing inflammation in the body, that will rev up the immune system, that will rev up the nervous system. And there's new research that I was just reading about how when the body's under stress, you can kind of get stuck in fight, flight, and freeze, like that sympathetic aspect of the nervous system. And when you're in fight, flight, or freeze, you run certain pathways. You don't run the whole gamut of what's available to your body. You're really in a mode of functioning where you can respond to a threat. And the problem with that is that with the kinds of things that oxalate does, especially driving inflammation, you really need rest, digest, and repair, particularly the repair piece. So we have to get out of that sympathetic nervous system function and into the parasympathetic so that we can get some of those benefits. And this is one of those places where it's not just nutrients. It's really how we manage our nervous system. Now, let me be clear. I've said this lots of time. I'll say it again. This does not mean what's going on for you is in your head. And anybody who says that is disrespectful. And honestly, I'm so frustrated with how many of my clients have heard that. But what we really need is to get our brain to be more of an ally to our healing journey. And for us, that means moving, being able to get a handoff between sympathetic and parasympathetic. We're hanging out all the time in the sympathetic nervous system. We're just not getting the benefits from what we're doing that we should be. And the brain is essentially an ancient system. Brain and body are using old ancient programming in a very ancient system, which is built for acute stress, not chronic stress. And so with today's world being full of chronic stressors and then oxalate being this long-term journey to get it out of your body, you're dealing with a chronic stressor, and that nervous system, the brain, the body, they are not built for chronic. So we need to turn down the heat in any way that we can so that we're not stuck. And the biggest thing there really is to get your nervous system to be your ally. How we do that is, multifaceted. And depending on what works best for us as individuals, we may use a variety of tools. But for sure, I love things like Yoga Nidra, which allows brain and body to come down and relax. And I am probably a classic type A since I was a kid. And what I've learned largely in the last few years, and probably the hard way between elderly mother, my husband who's had a life-changing concussion, I had kids late in life, so I'm still got a 19-year-old in university at home. I'm juggling a lot of things. And it's way too easy to be too stressed. That level of stress can result in all kinds of things where your body's just not repairing the way it should. So we really need to think about this whole oxalate journey in that context. I've often talked about oxalate as a marathon, not a sprint, because it can take, as far as we know, again, based on what little research we have on oxalate coming out of the body, it takes about 7 years to be clear. That's a long time. That's not like any other diet. You go off gluten and 6 weeks later, you're clear. You go off dairy and 6 weeks later or so, you're clear. That is not, unfortunately, oxalate. So we really have to build a toolkit that is thinking in terms of that longer term journey, and that it is a marathon and you have to protect your resilience. I have lots of clients who have said to me, well, can't I just do this quickly and that'll be fine? And it's really about protecting your resilience. So if oxalate's hammering away at your bandwidth, if you even just think of it as bandwidth, and your bandwidth is doing this, there's no advantage there. You really want to protect that bandwidth so that if an unexpected thing arises, that you've got some resilience. You can roll with the punches. If you're just essentially reducing your capacity, reducing your capacity because you're allowing your capacity to be used up by what oxalate is doing, then you're not ready for anything else that happens. So I'm hoping that what we can focus on when it comes to diet and all these other things is being able to enjoy every step of the journey. If you're living in miserableness, that's not to anybody's advantage. So I really want to encourage people to consider the right kinds of supplements and also consider the right kinds of tools for nervous system management.